What happens if you delete the internet? A world without the internet. Imagine waking up one morning to discover that the internet has completely vanished. No emails, no messages, no news updates, just silence in the digital space. The world would feel unrecognizably disconnected in an instant. The first shock. The first reaction would come from people reaching for their phones, only to find nothing works. Social media, email, and search engines would be gone forever. Confusion and panic would spread rapidly across the globe. Communication breakdown. Human communication, which has become instant and global, would collapse. Families living apart could no longer stay in touch with a single tap. Businesses would face chaos without real-time digital coordination. Financial freeze. Global stock markets that move trillions of dollars in milliseconds would come to a halt. Online trading platforms would disappear, and financial institutions would lose control. The world economy would be paralyzed within hours. Banks without power. Banks and ATMs would instantly become useless, with most systems relying on the internet. Withdrawing or transferring money would be impossible. People would rush to get cash, creating panic in the streets. Hospitals in crisis. Hospitals would face massive challenges without online systems. Digital patient records, prescriptions, and medical databases would vanish. Lives would be at risk as doctors lose access to critical information. Chaos in transportation. Airlines, shipping, and logistics rely heavily on the internet to function. Without GPS tracking and scheduling, flights would be grounded, ships lost, and deliveries delayed. Global transportation would descend into chaos. Everyday dependence. People would suddenly realize how much of their daily life depends on the internet. From food delivery to checking the weather, simple tasks would become slow and difficult. Life would feel far less convenient. Education set back. Students would lose access to online classes, digital libraries, and learning platforms. Education would be pushed back to physical books and classrooms. Generations of learners would lose their access to global knowledge. Entertainment collapse. Streaming services like YouTube, Netflix, and Spotify would disappear overnight. People would return to television, DVDs, and radio. For many, it would feel like a cultural time machine. The fall of influencers. Social media influencers would lose their platforms instantly. Millions of careers built on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube would vanish. The digital fame industry would collapse overnight. The death of e-commerce. Online businesses, such as Amazon and eBay, would vanish. Consumers would return to malls and physical stores for shopping. The golden era of one-click buying would end forever. Jobs lost overnight. Entire industries built on the internet would disappear. From IT professionals to freelancers, millions of people would lose their jobs. Economic devastation would spread faster than ever before. Families apart again. Families living far from each other would struggle to stay connected. Expensive phone calls and slow letters would replace instant video chats. Distance would once again feel painful and isolating. Governments in panic. Governments would lose their primary channels of communication with citizens. Announcements, warnings, and services would become slow and ineffective. Political systems would stumble into chaos. Military vulnerabilities. Modern militaries rely heavily on internet-based systems. Without them, satellites, drones, and defense networks would collapse. Nations would face new and dangerous vulnerabilities. News without speed. Breaking news would no longer reach people instantly. Information would slow down to newspapers, television, and radio broadcasts. The world would become much less connected. Life without Google. Billions of people rely on Google daily for answers. Without it, knowledge would no longer be just a click away. Humanity would feel intellectually powerless. Knowledge locked away. Wikipedia, forums, and blogs would disappear. People would return to libraries, books, and experts for answers. Knowledge would become slower and harder to access. The collapse of crypto. Digital currencies like Bitcoin would instantly become worthless. Without blockchain networks, the crypto world would cease to exist. Billions of dollars would vanish overnight. With a cash-only world. Without online banking apps, people would rely entirely on cash. Businesses would struggle to adapt. And international trade would slow dramatically. The financial system would be thrown backward by decades. Small businesses destroyed. Entrepreneurs running online stores would lose everything. Platforms like Shopify and Etsy would no longer exist. Millions of dreams built online would be shattered instantly. The end of remote work. Remote jobs powered by Zoom and Slack would disappear. Millions of workers would be forced back into offices. The flexibility of modern work would end. Freelancers left jobless. Freelancers depending on Fiverr or Upwork would lose their income. The gig economy would collapse in a single day. Many would struggle to find new opportunities. Online learning gone. Educational giants like Coursera and Khan Academy would disappear. Affordable global education would no longer be available. Knowledge would once again belong to the privileged few. Creators silenced. Artists, filmmakers, and musicians would lose platforms like YouTube and Spotify. Independent creators would no longer have a stage. Creative industries would shrink back to traditional gatekeepers. The return of malls. Shopping malls and physical stores would experience a sudden revival. People would once again browse shelves for products. The shopping experience would slow down dramatically. Customer service regression. Without live chat or email, customer service would return to phone lines. People would spend hours on hold for basic solutions. Frustration would skyrocket worldwide. Travel becomes difficult. Travel planning would collapse without booking websites. People would return to travel agencies and paper tickets. Spontaneous adventures would become nearly impossible. No more search engines. Search engines would vanish, leaving people helpless without instant answers. Research would require days of reading physical books. Knowledge would move at a much slower pace. Dating without apps. Dating apps would disappear overnight. Millions of digital connections would never happen. Relationships would once again depend on real-life encounters. Advertising breakdown. Digital ads would vanish, collapsing a trillion-dollar industry. Businesses would return to television, billboards, and newspapers. Marketing would become less precise and far more expensive. Cloud storage vanishes. Billions of memories and documents stored in the cloud would disappear. Families would lose photos, videos, and important files forever. The digital past would be erased. Gaming without online play. Online multiplayer gaming would vanish instantly. Gamers would be limited to offline play and physical discs. The social side of gaming would disappear. Navigation without GPS. Drivers would lose GPS maps on their phones. People would return to paper maps and asking strangers for directions. Travel would be slower and far more confusing. Smart homes turn dumb. Smart devices would lose their functionality without the internet. Assistants, smart locks, and connected appliances would stop working. Homes would feel less futuristic overnight. The economic collapse. The global economy would shrink at a shocking pace. Millions of companies would shut down, unable to operate without digital systems. Progress built over decades would crumble. rediscovering simplicity. People would return to physical books, handwritten letters, and face-to-face conversations. While less convenient, life might feel simpler for some. A slower world would emerge. Stronger local communities. With no online distractions, communities might grow stronger. Neighbors, families, and friends would reconnect in person. Human interaction would once again become central. The burden of slowness. For most people, however, the lack of speed and convenience would be unbearable. Life would feel slow, frustrating, and outdated. Humanity would struggle to adapt. A hard lesson in dependence. The loss of the internet would reveal how deeply we rely on it. From business to relationships, nearly everything depends on digital networks. Humanity would face a painful reality check. A world forced to adapt. Societies would need to reinvent systems for communication, trade, and learning. Some nations would adapt, while others might collapse. The balance of power would shift worldwide. The nervous system of civilization. The internet is not just technology. It is the nervous system of modern civilization. Removing it would be like shutting down the brain of humanity. Life as we know it would end. The ultimate question, the real question, is not just what happens if you delete the internet, but whether humanity could survive without it. The truth may be more terrifying than we want to believe. The final reminder. So next time you log in, remember, you're connecting to the most powerful invention in history. The internet is not just a tool. It's the lifeline of our modern world. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Hitting the like button really helps the channel grow and reach more people like you. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next big video.